Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Well, Naxos is finally releasing the Vox catalog, and we're going to be talking about these titles as they come. I have a bunch of them right here that we'll be going through. But, surprise, surprise, they are not just boxing up everything and tossing it out there cheap for physical product. No, quite the opposite. They are releasing individual discs at what is basically a full price, or lower full price. Well, the cost I've seen has been around $16 a disc. Now, that may shock some of you, but I understand the logic. The logic is really simple. A lot of what was in the Vox catalog was really pretty special. It really was. And they didn't really know the value of what they had. And comparatively, going back, it seems that some of it was really worth something. And if Naxos owns it, they can charge whatever they damn well please for it. And we'll see what happens. If no one buys it, maybe they'll charge less. If people want it, they may charge more. It's a very smart move, in my view, from an economic and business point of view. It may annoy some of you who are hoping to glom onto this stuff for, very little outlay, and I'm sorry about that, but that's economics, my friends, and we'll see how it goes. However, the first release, is really kind of surprised me, shocked me. Who knew this was a Vox release? But it was, somehow, some way. It was Furtwängler's really slow, adipose, awful Beethoven Fourth Symphony from 1943. Originally, it was billed as 1945. Vox was not big on documentation always, but they weren't quite sure, for this was the war period, remember? These are those famous war tapes. The Berlin Philharmonic has this performance. Actually, they have two of them, one with an audience and one without. This is the one without, or at least I gather that from the lack of coughing and choking and hacking and performance noises. Not that it makes much difference, because this is a single disc, 36 minutes and 26 seconds long. It contains only Beethoven's Fourth Symphony with the Berlin Philharmonic. It sounds like a 1943 wartime radio broadcast recording. The sound isn't terrible, it's listenable, but it's very mono, somewhat boxy and diffuse. But the performance itself, oh my God. What a snooze. This has to be the most boring performance of Beethoven's Fourth ever by anybody, for any reason. I mean, it's just dreadful. It's dreadful in so many ways. It's difficult to list them all. But let's try, shall we? Just for the sake of the argument and to have a little fun. Well, you actually get the original cover, by the way. Here was the original cover. There it was. Ain't that attractive. Anyway, it's just slow. It's so slow. Oh, it's so painfully slow. It's lethally slow. The opening introduction, the introduction for the first movement. Da, 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 da. Not just slow. It's that slow. I'm not kidding. It's just about that slow. It may be slower. I don't know. That's as slow as I can do it and not like lose my mind. But it is incredibly slow and incredibly tensionless. There's nothing happening. It's just adagissimo. It's horrendous. Then when the allegro gets going, well, the allegro never gets going. It just never gets going. It's thick, it's heavy, it's flaccid. It's just a limp noodle of a performance. And because of the sonics, the woodwind parts, which are so important, the second subject, it should have a freshness, a perkiness. They're sort of out there somewhere in the middle of the texture, and they are as flat-footed as anything you've ever heard in your life. It's just grotesque. It's terrible. Now, the second movement, well, for the sake of argument, it is marked an adagio. But Furtwängler takes 12 minutes over it. It's like a Bruckner adagio and not a Beethoven adagio. It starts like dum, ba-dum, 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 yeah. Oh, I mean, if you're not in a coma after the first 10 bars, then, you have far more resilience than I do. It's just awful that anybody could play this. This music this is the symphony in which Beethoven discovered the joy of movement, of athletic movement. Even that slow movement, it's a rondo. It has this sort of cosmic circularity about it, and wonderful lead backs that are exciting, and oh God, there's nothing. Okay, scherzo. Ugh. First of all, there's no second half repeat in the scherzo, which is kind of weird. And second of all, it's rhythmically challenged, as Furtwängler usually was. But you have to hear it. Well, you don't have to hear it. In fact, I don't really recommend that you hear it. But to understand just how completely flat-footed the performance is. It just never gets off the ground. And then we get the finale, which actually has an exposition repeat for some reason. Now, the finale is almost impossible not to make exciting, but Furtwängler manages to do it because it's a perpetual motion piece, right? Chicka 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 bum bum ya da 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 da. The problem is that every time that the music becomes quiet, all the tension just drains away. It just goes away. And, I mean, it's at least there's an attempt at liveliness here. But, of course, because it involves, lots of ensemble coordination, and Furtwängler is not at his best, although the Berlin Philharmonic plays pretty well. They do. This is not a organizational mess as some of his other performances are. But, my God, I mean, that wonderful sort of whirlwind thing when it's going, chong, 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 and the strings are going, he actually makes like a diminuendo there, and makes it as I mean, there's no clarity. It's all just thickness and oh, what a mess. What a mess. But I understand why they released it. They released it because it's Furtwängler and it's Beethoven and it was on Vox. I mean, who knew, right? And it's one of the famous wartime recordings that's in the Berlin Philharmonic box for like $5,000 that they want to charge for it. I mean, this is a bargain comparatively. But why any sane human being would want this performance, I have no clue. Happily, the other releases in this initial pile of Vox stuff are vastly superior, and it will be an enormous pleasure for me to talk about them rather shortly. So, I begin on a downside, I know, but I was just so shocked to see this. I couldn't believe it was reappearing again. It's like a bad dream. And here it is. There you go. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.